what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Ben, and today we're going to get back to work on my Honda XR650L Dual Sport Adventure build. If you guys haven't been following the build, I can put a playlist link in the description and up in the upper right here. We've done a lowering link on the back. This drops the back anywhere from 1 to 2 inches. I've got it drop just 1 inch. We've got the Hemisphere off-road bash plate and side protection, as well as this rally fairing, and this is the short version, and that gives me a great place to put my CarPlay unit, my voltmeter, some switches for my heated seat and heated grips, and the Tusk tachometer, which doesn't seem to work very well with the Honda, so I wouldn't recommend that for this bike. It works fine in the DR, but not so much on this one for some reason. But anyhow, as much as the Rally windshield helps cut down on the wind fatigue and kind of keeps me a little bit warmer when I'm riding around when it's a bit colder, it doesn't really do a whole lot in the way of wind protection for my helmet. It sort of shoots the wind kind of right at my eyeballs, more or less, so that's sort of where the buffeted turbulent air is. So that's why I asked them to send me their windshield that gets added onto the Rally windscreen, as well as a few other parts here that we'll talk about in a bit. So again, huge thanks to them for sending me all the stuff that's on the bike already today and the stuff that we'll be testing out. I don't make any sort of commission off the links, but if you guys are interested in checking any of these parts out for yourself, I'll put links down in the description. There'll also be some affiliate links down there to the other parts that I've got on the bike. So if you guys are interested in those, or you just need to do any other sort of shopping, if you click on any of the links marked as affiliate links, either in the description or the top pinned comment, it'll help me to continue making videos like this, and I definitely appreciate that. Huge thanks to all you guys that have been using my affiliate links. I simply could not do stuff like this without my sponsors and without you guys, so huge thanks to you, and of course, huge thanks to my channel members. Now let's get this stuff put together and on the bike so we can test it. Now, I'm sure some of you are probably appalled by the fact that I lowered a dual sport motorcycle, and honestly, 5 years ago me, or even 2 years ago me, probably would have also been sort of disgusted by that fact, but I still have over 12 inches of ground clearance. And now that this ridiculously tall machine has a slightly lower center of gravity, I actually find it, well, a lot more enjoyable to ride both on and off the road. Of course, being able to actually comfortably touch the ground is certainly a nice bonus, but honestly, the main reason that I decided to drop it was just because the DR650 that I've been testing alongside this bike is just a lot more enjoyable to ride and feels a lot more planted. And of course, a lower center of gravity also means that the bike has less mechanical advantage on the tires, meaning that they have to do a little bit less work to keep traction with the ground. So upon closer inspection here, it looks like I've got 2 right-handed windshield brackets instead of a right and a left. One of these should be a mirrored version of the other one, so I'll have to email Hemisphere about that and get the right one. In the meantime, though, we can get these other parts installed. So this is going to be a dipstick for the oil that is also going to tell us the oil temperature, which will be kind of nice since, of course, the XR650L is just air-cooled, meaning that there's no antifreeze to tell the temperature on. So we'll get the stock dipstick removed here. If we lay that down and check the new one, looks like we've got our upper level here, and I guess that must be our upper level, hash marks there. And then we've got the low level way down here, where, I mean, that kind of doesn't seem like it quite lines up. But I suppose we're technically sort of erring on the side of caution there then, if you were to keep it between these 2 points here. Although I suppose this is only about halfway up these hash marks, so I would say you probably want to keep it, well, somewhere between the bottom of these hash marks and the middle of the top there. And while it is probably about time that I check the oil level on the XR, again, the reason that this is so low on the dipstick is because you're supposed to fire the bike up, let it run for a little bit before you check. Of course, check your owner's manual. I don't recall exactly how it goes, but it is not warm at all. It's just been sitting in the garage. Does that line up properly? Oh, you can just turn the top. So you just want to tighten it using the knurled marks on there, and then you can just adjust the top. So it'll be interesting to see how easy that is to see over the tank bag and also what it reads for temperature while we're out riding. The other thing I asked them to send me is the updated version of their adjustable kickstand, which can, I think, be ordered either with or without the lowering link. And when I got the lowering link kit with this, it was still the older version of this, which, as you can see, is just a little bit shorter than the new version. And the old version did work. I just didn't really like how it made the bike lean over a little bit further than I would prefer. It just sort of made it a little bit hard to film. It made it a little bit difficult in situations where the ground was a little bit soft. You just ended up with a little bit more weight hanging off the side of the bike, and thus sort of pushing the kickstand into the ground a little bit farther. So I guess we'll see how it looks on the bike. There is, of course, some adjustability, so we can change it if I don't like it, but I think it'll end up being a little bit better. The foot pad itself is, of course, still nice and large, which is definitely nice when you're riding and parking in mushy off-road situations. When I put this back together, I'm going to hopefully do it the right way. I believe this fastener is actually supposed to go on before this little protection bracket or whatever it is, so hopefully I can get that right this time. I believe if I flip that back, that should take some of the load off of that spring, and that'll make that a little bit easier. And my spring removal tool is actually busted, and I think there's not a whole lot of tension on here, so maybe I can make this work without even having to actually pull the spring off. And this is, of course, the kickstand sensor, so you want to be careful with that. And this is actually what holds this on here. There's a nut on the back side. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but the thunder is just rolling out there. It's got a nut on the back. And I believe, yeah, that'll just slide out. And I'm hoping I can just sort of, yeah, like that. So here we've got the new one, which is, of course, a bit longer, and the old one, which is a little bit shorter, and I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. The feet, I think, are all the same size. Must just be where they've got the holes drilled. Okay, yeah, so it looks like the old one doesn't have holes drilled all the way down to the bottom, which is why I could only mount it that far down, where I'm betting this new one here. Yeah, has a couple extra holes drilled in it, so that's why we're able to mount this a little bit lower. And I think I will go back to having 3 fasteners in here just because I've got the extra ones. That'll just give me a little bit more confidence to tilt the bike up on the side stand and spin it around when I'm in close quarters. Getting a little bit of blue thread locker. Might as well use the new fastener here. I'll put some thread locker on there. Oop, make sure not to lose the sleeve though. Now the trick's going to be getting it lined up with some tension on here. Yeah, not too bad. I think that'll work, right? There we are. Get that guy on the back. Seems good. Get that back on. All right, let's do this in the right order this time. Got a little bit of thread locker on here. We'll fasten that down first. And then we'll put the cover plate on. That sure seems backwards, but I'm pretty sure that's how it came off of there originally. Oh, chickens. A little slippery in here today. Probably not a safe thing to do anyways. That's why I have the disclaimer at the beginning of the video. Don't try anything I do on the channel at home, or if you do, it's at your own risk. I think I like that angle much better though. That seems a lot more like it was stock and I think where it should be. So I believe we've got the right parts, or I guess maybe I should say the left and the right parts. Huge thanks to Hemisphere for sending these out to me really quickly. They also sent a set of these but it looks like maybe these were correct the first time, or just maybe how they formed them. I'm not sure why the little indicator marks are not lining up with what they've got on the drawing here. But other than those misplaced marks, they look like a mirrored image of each other. The sort of tighter bends are up at the top here, and the slightly less tight bends are at the bottom. So I think those should work. The assembly drawing here seems to be referencing a Gen 1 KLR, and I had asked him about that and just got the same instructions. So I would assume that basically we're just going to assemble this more or less the same way, just ignoring the part about drilling holes in the fairing. That's because with the XR Rally fairing, we've already got these 4 fastening points here that mount the Rally fairing to these brackets on the side here, so I'll just have to remove my Rally dash plate. And then instead of these 4 fasteners going in that direction and threading into a nut on the backside, they'll come through from the backside and fasten into the threaded inserts in this bracket. Or at least that's how I think it's supposed to go. I guess we'll find out. It looks like everything's all right in there. I don't see any bare copper showing. Some of the wires are rubbing up against the inside of the fairing and almost kind of wearing holes in there, so that's a little bit odd, but seems all right otherwise. Probably do these one side at a time so we don't lose the fairing. So I've got the bracket with the 2 locator holes in it, and as you can see, that bend is a little bit more extreme than the opposite side, and I'm thinking that that is the bracket for this side. I'm not exactly sure which way it's supposed to go though, since again the indicator holes were supposed to be at the bottom, but I'm thinking that that's going to be at the top like this. Well, the holes line up. Definitely has a little bit of a rock to it, but I guess maybe once the fasteners are in there, that'll kind of conform. I guess we'll see. So even though these aren't completely tightened down yet, the bracket looks to be sort of conforming to the fairing like I was hoping it would, so no worries there. Seems like it should get nice and tight, no problem. So it looks like this one, the 3 locator holes are going to be best suited at the bottom like the instructions show, and here again the sort of tighter angle is at the top. Slightly reduced angle at the bottom. Wobble Allens from Tusk sure are nice. So there we are. Those are both on there, and I feel like they're pretty darn sturdy, so we can move on to the next step. And that's going to be getting these brackets attached to the windshield. So we'll need these rubber washers on both sides. I want the longer fasteners here that I've got blue thread locker on already. So now we'll get our first glimpse of what this is going to look like. Brackets on the windshield just go on the outside of the ones on the fairing, and then I'm just going to use these thumb screws to fasten it all together. So it seems like that all lined up pretty good, so we'll get these outer ones cranked all the way down, and the instructions said something about some washers. I suppose I may have misplaced mine, but I'm wondering if maybe they just updated the fasteners to have a slightly larger head on it, because it does seem almost like that is a bit of a washer, and it's not like these need to be cranked down super tight, because then you're going to be putting some stress on the plastic. So I'm just going to kind of snug them down to a point that they're starting to squish the rubber washers, and I think we'll just call that good and see how it works. With the Loctite in there, it should hopefully just keep them in place wherever I end up leaving them, and it seems like that ought to work. I guess we'll see what happens on the test ride. The other thing that we'll test while we're out on the ride is how this thing works in its different positions. So if I loosen these up, which seems easy enough to do, I should be able to just slide that down, and it looks like I can slide it down to about here, and then the brackets are actually kind of crashing into the fairing, which really I wouldn't personally want it any lower than this, because then it's going to be covering on my headlights. So this, I guess, would be the lowest position. But I think maybe I'll move that up just a tad so it's not actually resting on the fairing. And for reference, at 5'10" with a 31-inch inseam, I would say that windshield is maybe just about eye level, maybe a little bit lower. Yeah, I suppose a little bit lower than eye level, but I certainly would be able to hide behind it. It seems like this kind of mid portion of the screen is nice and clear, but where the bevel is, it almost seems like it's a little bit hard to see through. I guess we'll see what happens when we're out on the road. If I crack these loose, move the shield all the way up, the sort of beveled portion is going to be a bit above eye level, but even the lower portion, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to like looking through it. One thing that I think is worth mentioning and certainly worth keeping in mind is that anytime you put any type of wind protection on a dual sport or adventure bike and you're riding off-road, you could end up in a situation where you bash your face or neck on anything that's up here. And I think regardless of what position this was in, it could possibly cause you a bit of an injury if you get up on the bars and bash your face on it. But even with it removed and just the rally screen on here, you could still certainly get up against that and cause yourself a bit of pain. So definitely ride safe out there. Keep that in mind and watch what you're doing. So the more that I looked at this, the more I started to think that there might actually be something wrong with the shield. So I took some pictures as best I could, and I think you can kind of tell in the video right now, the way that I've got this thing focused, that there's just some very slight kind of irregularities in the plastic. It's just not completely clear, even in the portion below the bevel, and obviously the bevel is really kind of hard to see through. So I messaged Hemisphere Off-Road, and they immediately sent me out 2 new shields, one of which seems to be like absolutely perfect. The other one is certainly better than the original, but does still have some small variations in it. And I think either one is not going to be perfectly optically correct just because there is so much curve to it. But no matter what, it's going to be much better than what I've got on here. So I'm going to get this swapped out, and I will finally get this thing out for a ride and see how it works on the road. So let's do that.
Before we get into this, I wanted to mention something that's extremely important for you guys to keep in mind while you're watching this video, and that's the fact that the viewpoint that you're seeing both the bike and the road and trail from is about 6 inches lower than my actual line of sight, and that's because, well, I can't put a camera in front of my eyes, then I wouldn't be able to see the road or the trail. So keep in mind that the way you're going to be seeing the road and the trail, especially through the shield, is going to be substantially different than what it would look like if you were actually sitting on the bike. And if you keep that in mind, that should hopefully make a little bit more sense with a lot of the stuff that I'm saying and showing to you guys here. So let's get on to the test ride and see how this shield worked.
So I actually decided to take the XR to Tigerton to buy my park pass for the season, even though it's already the end of June. But that means we're on the highway first for a little bit, and then we'll hit a little bit of back roads, and then finally a little bit of off-roading. And I'll just kind of stop periodically and adjust the windshield height. Right now it is in the lowest position, and I do have my visor open. I'll shut it just in case you can't hear me at all. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a wind sound sample. And I'm kind of sitting straight back right now, so I'm looking over the shield just barely. If I hunker down, I have to hunker down kind of a ways, and then I can see through a part that is, I would say, usable, but honestly, the top third, or maybe even a little bit more, with that bevel, and then even just kind of below the bevel. I said I was going to shut this, didn't I? Even below the bevel a few inches, there's so much distortion that I just don't like it. It really kind of makes me uncomfortable, and I like I said, have to basically sit straight back to see over it, which isn't bad. It's good for my posture, but as far as seeing through the windshield, it's kind of bad. I mean, it really throws things off to a point, and maybe you guys can see that I would say, I mean, it's not something that you could safely look through, and I think when I raise it up here, that should help. As far as the wind protection aspect goes, it's actually really nice. Of course, when I hunker way down behind it, it's extremely nice, but even when I'm looking over it, as I'm hoping you guys could tell with the visor open there, it's really, I mean, pretty nice. A lot quieter, and I think would be a lot better on a super long ride than
without this clear piece at all, with just the number plaque, or whatever you want to call it, the extended number plaque. The rally fairing, that's what I'm trying to say. So move that all the way up. Obviously not something that you could really safely do while moving, but fairly quick. Oh boy, that is up there. Yeah, and now, again, at my height with my lowered seat, which is lowered an inch, and I suppose the back of the bike is dropped a little bit in comparison to the front, an extra quarter inch. Now if I sit straight back, I'm looking directly through the lower portion of the distortion. If I hunker down below that though, then there is now a much clearer, or much larger, somewhat clearer section. Again, not perfectly optically correct because of the sides, but I would say a decent amount of shield to look through. Again, that top, and especially when I sit like this, that makes me uncomfortable. You could not safely do this at all. I'm going to shut the shield here after I give you a little bit of a wind noise sample again. At 70 miles an hour indicated on the dash, which is probably a little bit slower than actual. I don't really know that it's that much better than with the shield lower, and I think I would probably prefer it in its low position just so I have the ability to sit up straight and just to look over it. Again, the nice clear spot that you guys probably aren't able to see because your vision is, of course, a couple inches lower than mine, is bigger, so I mean that's nice, but I think always prefer to look over a shield than through it. And I think especially this one, just because like I said, it's not perfectly optically correct, so things to the side are a little bit distorted, which is of course where the deer are going to be waiting for me. So I think my preference is certainly going to be to have this lower, but it certainly does provide a nice wind pocket. If I go off to the side here, oh wow, yeah, that actually has a really nice big wind pocket. So if I sit kind of back seat here, that's really provides a pretty nice place to be from a wind protection standpoint. Does it outweigh the fact that I feel like I can't really see into the ditches very well? No, probably not. I think I'd still rather have it lower. Can I do this while I'm on the bike? Probably not with my camera in the way. You guys are gonna have to move for a second. That's somewhat doable while you're on the bike. Of course, you gotta keep your eyes out on your mirrors, make sure nobody comes and smashes into you. Probably best to pull over somewhere safer and do it. Yeah, it certainly promotes good posture. Yeah, I just do not like losing that bit of sight of the road still, though. There's just a few inches that at the top there that between the time that I see like a bump or some irregularity in the road above the shield, and then by the time it gets to the clear part, when I kind of try to watch it go through there, it really does kind of throw me off a bit. However, with all that being said, it really does provide a pretty nice spot to sit. There's certainly a bit of buffeting, but I mean, even if I really extend myself, I'm not getting hardly anything in the way of buffeted air. And again, off to the sides, I mean, there's a really pretty clean air pocket. I just wish you could see through it a little bit clearer. It's kind of too bad. It's really too bad, because it's definitely a much nicer place to sit now. I haven't really noticed any change in handling characteristics, but I would have to think having that big of a piece of plastic, especially when it's extended all the way attached to the bars, has also gotta affect handling at least a little bit. And it actually has been a while since I've been on this bike, but I don't know, I do almost want to say that I can tell that it maybe feels a little bit different. The side stand I definitely like. I think could be just a smidge higher, but it seems to work pretty well. What are we reading on the gauge? That is also a little bit hard to see through. Looks like 250. I really do like how this thing. What? I really do like how this thing looks. Honestly, kind of both with and without the actual clear shield on here. At first, I wasn't too sure what to think of it when I put it on here, but it's kind of grown on me, and I feel like it kind of fits the bike, especially the sort of ADV build look that I've been going for. But I don't know, I don't really like being hunched over looking through it. It's much more comfortable to sit up straight and look over it, but then still, I mean, like I said, if you guys can see that, it really just kind of throws everything off. I guess we'll see how bad it is off-road. I'm assuming that if the bumps and cracks on the road are a little bit scary to try to see, all the stuff off-road is going to be incredibly hard to see. I guess most of the time I like to stand up anyway, but I'm thinking I'm probably not going to end up leaving this on here. But we got some more riding to do, so I guess let's go get our sticker and hit the trails. Along with the wind, it's certainly keeping all those bugs off of me. Could have used that when I was cruising around in the DRZ4S the other night. There we go. Yeah, definitely happy to have that slightly longer side stand, that's for sure. I suppose I didn't really mention too much about it. It looks like my oil temperature dropped down to 100, but to be able to look down and see this thing when you're moving, I mean, I think it's just not safe. It's just too small and too out of the way. You guys might not even be able to see it over the tank bag. It's certainly nice to have it there to be able to tell what the temperature is. And I mean, obviously, once you kind of get an idea for where the numbers are, I think it'll be a little bit better. But it's certainly not something that I think I would recommend looking at while you're moving. So I would say, sorry Hemisphere Off-Road, this is pretty terrible. Yeah, I mean, sitting down, this just absolutely does not work. That bit of distortion, I mean, really messes with me. I do not like that at all. If you don't mind seeing anything from, not being able to see anything from there down, it's not a big deal, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to be standing up. And while standing up, of course, having the shield a little bit further away helps, but I mean, it's still plenty close that if I was to go up onto the bars, I mean, I could easily hit my face on that. Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess we did get quite a bit of rain. I don't think we're going to do that, though. We'll stick to the main trail. Ooh, yikes. You know what, though? Even just bobbing around like that, that's kind of, seems like it's getting in the way a bit. Or like it could. I mean, it kind of scares me. I guess you just don't have as much range of motion. So when you're really, you know, trying to let the bike move underneath you, I could definitely see bashing my face on that thing. Wow, yeah, I guess there was a flood warning. No wonder. Actually, it doesn't seem like it distorts things nearly as much as when you're seated. I guess there's some reflection of the bike that makes it kind of hard to see through, but I mean, if you don't mind looking over it, I think it's totally fine. Trying to look through it, is that a new trail? Trying to look through it, I think is probably not something that I would say is great. I mean, it's nice that it's clear, that you can kind of see through it. And again, that lower part, so where I'm looking right next to the tire and right in front of the tire is somewhat viewable, other than the reflection. But yeah, I don't know, I'm a little nervous that I might bash my face on this thing. I mean, it is a lot of wind protection, obviously. Maybe a shorter version of this would be better, and I suppose you could even cut it down. I kind of like the fact that that bevel goes away from me a bit, so I wouldn't quite get my face directly on the sharp edge. It's sort of pushed away from me a little bit. Or maybe that wouldn't even help, I guess, I don't know. But a shorter shield might do the trick. Basically, if you just cut that that section off that I said I didn't like, that would probably be just about perfect. A little bit of a crosswind going here, but with the windshield now cut down and in the absolute lowest position and my visor wide open at 70 miles an hour indicated, I mean, I'm sure you guys can tell this is incredibly comfortable. I do get a little bit of buffeting if I sit kind of up straight back, then I can kind of feel it hitting my eyes. It's not super comfortable, but it's definitely not nearly as uncomfortable as when I pulled this completely off and took it for a ride. I kind of almost can't believe how bad that was. And I mean, it's certainly, what are you doing, man? You see me? It's certainly nice to have just the rally fairing on the really cold days, but it did, well, start to get to you when you're on the highway. I mean, I pretty much always had to ride with my windshield, or visor, whatever you want to call it, down. I mean, it was just impossible to ride with it open for a long period of time, regardless of whether I was filming or not. It was horrible for the audio, but it was just uncomfortable for me too. But with this on here, I mean, if I just hunch just a little bit in this lowest position, it is just, I mean, absolutely wonderful. And yeah, maybe eventually I'll kind of start to not like it, but I mean, for right now anyways, initial thoughts is it is so much better. And I mean, it really makes just a super nice spot. It makes the seat a really super nice spot to be. And I mean, you kind of can shift back a little bit and squat even a little bit more. And keep in mind again that your vision is about 4 or 5 inches lower than my eye, where my eyes are, give or take a bit. So you're probably looking through the screen. I'm not. I'm looking over it, and I absolutely love that. I did not like having to sort of crane my neck way up in the air to try to get a good view of the road or what was ahead of me with the shield not cut down. I just did not like that. Where now, I mean, even like I said, hunched over like this, my vision's perfect. It's not in my way. The part of the screen that's left is nice and clear. I mean, I am ecstatic that this worked out. Let's pull off here and we'll put it up in the high position again. I have noticed that it does feel like it affects the handling just a tad. You definitely want to make sure you understand how any modification, especially a windshield attached to a handlebar, I don't think it's anything that's going to be exclusive to just this shield. Anytime you put any shield on a motorcycle, it's going to change things. Whew, it is hot. And that is probably worth mentioning that even with this thing on here, I do still get a little bit of wind. Of course, it's not going to be nearly as much as if you were to go out without the rally fairing or the windshield or anything. But there is still, I would say, enough air that's hitting me and kind of entering the vents in the coat, especially with the sleeves unzipped, which probably wouldn't be the safest thing in a crash. But when it's near 90 degrees, of course, you got to get a little bit of airflow. So certainly beats riding around without a coat on like most people do. So we are at about 70 indicated on the dash. And I think this definitely is substantially different with it raised up like this. I would assume you guys could probably hear that in the audio. Gets me a little bit of buffeting way up here, but I mean that's almost uncomfortable to sit that high, so I mean I can pretty much scoot to the back of the seat, and I mean this is just an absolutely beautiful place to be. Like I said, I think it does maybe change the handling just a tad, just because there is so much fairing up there, but anytime you put any windshield on a bike, especially a dual sport bike with big tall raked out forks, I mean it's just gonna affect it. There's no way around that. So I'm gonna stop myself there for a minute just to elaborate on this a bit, because I think it is important to understand. Like I mentioned, anytime you add a large amount of wind protection and thus wind deflection to what is essentially a bike's steering, meaning your forks rather than the frame like on an adventure bike, there is a good chance it's going to affect how the bike handles, especially at higher speeds. If there's any sort of disturbance either in the air or on the road, say from a passing semi, a bump or rut in the road surface, the bike can get a little out of line and develop a bit of a wobble. This can also happen if you make a quick maneuver at high speeds or give the bars a little bit too much input when you're making a shift. And with this clear shield attached, especially in the higher position, the XR seemed to be a little more wild and took noticeably longer to come back into line than it did before I installed it. If you want a rock solid smooth cruiser to do 70 miles an hour plus on the freeway with, I mean, well then you should buy an adventure bike, not a dual sport. It's just not what you're gonna get. But man, I gotta say, I mean this makes this thing incredibly comfortable. I mean, it's probably almost as good of wind protection as I had on the Gen 3 KLR, which is, of course, kind of what I'm trying to do with these bikes, is get somewhere near that level of on-road comfort. And with the scoops on the side that are supposed to scoop air into the engine and over the cooling fins, I mean, it really has almost as good a wind protection. Certainly not as good because you don't have the side fairings, but I mean, this is almost exactly, I mean, I suppose it is exactly what I was going for, short of a full rally fairing and wraparound fairings. It took a bit of cutting down, and that ended up being, well, a bit of a hassle, actually. This stuff really just, I don't know what material this is versus the Tusk windshield that I cut down not too long ago, but we had another gear there. It more melted than it cut, which was a mess to clean up, and then trying to sand it down and even it out was just not very pleasant. And it just seems like it, I don't know, even after polishing it, it just kind of gives it a haze if you're running through a lot of brush, and over the years of running in dust and cleaning it off, it might end up getting a little bit more scuffed than a different material would. But I mean, if you don't mind cutting it and being patient and hopefully not screwing it up and hopefully not getting a shield that was bad, which I suppose that is another thing that I should mention, is I looked at the other shield when I got home, the second and actually the first one that they sent me, and neither of them had that weird lower distortion. They just had the other issues that I mentioned to begin with. So I mean, that certainly I think could be kind of frustrating, but I really think, well, they should basically make these shields exactly the way that I've got mine now, because as of right now anyways, and of course I'll update you guys if there's changes and maybe do a final review on this at some point. But for right now, I love it. I mean, this is great. It's such nice wind protection. I love the adjustability. It'll be interesting to see once we get off-road, when I lower it and raise it up again, how that affects things. Now, especially that it's probably 5 inches, 6 inches shorter than it was originally. So let's find some dirt. I think I may have forgot to charge this battery, so hopefully we got at least a little bit of footage out of that. Either that or I forgot to charge this battery, and these are both just maybe cooked and need to be replaced. So off-road, even just on this basically gravel road with a little bit of variances here and there, I can tell that I'm not a huge fan of trying to look through the shield, and of course it is something that, again, is going to take a little bit of getting used to. It's certainly much better than with that giant distortion and with the bevel, even just in and of itself. I don't really, I guess, know why you would ever want to really ride around off-road with it in this high position. I mean, I guess unless you're just too lazy to stop and move it down, which I will do in a bit here. But I think just having it cut down in general is going to be good, especially when I move it down to the lower position, just because when you are off-road and say need to hop over a puddle, if you guys can't tell, I mean, I do still get a little bit close to that shield, and I rounded my cut as best I could, but I think, now not, I know if I was to smack my face on that, it would certainly be uncomfortable. I guess maybe a set of goggles would be really the right answer, at least to kind of help cushion the blow a bit, but I think no matter what, I mean, that certainly isn't a spot that, I mean, is probably exactly where my face would go if I misjudged something and ended up throwing myself forward onto the bars. So, again, anytime you're doing any modification to a bike, you want to understand what it's going to do and how it's going to affect both the on and off-road side of things. And if you're building an adventure dual sport, or just even an adventure bike, or even just buying an adventure bike, there are going to be some trade-offs. Come on, neutral, where are you? So now, let's move it down to a more reasonable location. And hopefully that'll give me a little bit more air. I do really wish those brackets would just bottom themselves out rather than me having to peek around to make sure that I'm not going to be scratching my visor rally fairing all up. But as long as you're in a safe spot, somewhat easy enough to do, I would say. Ooh, getting close to 300 for oil temp. Let's get this big old girl moving. And yeah, I immediately feel better about that now. And the nice thing about this shield versus really anything else that you'd stick on here is that it is, well, a lot farther away from the rider, which is actually really good for on-road riding too, because you get a little bit more wind protection when it's a little bit farther away from you. It can sort of toss it up in the air over your head, which is, I think, kind of why I saw such an improvement on the road, even just with this little, I mean, I say little, I guess it's not that little, but even with that reduced amount of clear plastic up there in comparison to what I had before. I mean, it really is totally sufficient. On road, I love the fact that I can adjust it both up and down for a little bit more airflow or a little bit less airflow and a little more wind protection. And off-road, I mean, it's really nice to know that it's at least a little bit farther away and now not so tall. Still certainly could bash my face on it, but I'd have to go a lot farther down. And, well, again, that is something to keep in mind. And I think this works excellent for off-road. And, of course, you could cut it down even more than I did if you really wanted to. But I don't really see a need to do that. I mean, it doesn't seem to distort the trail too much when I'm sitting down. I mean, there's a little bit of reflection from the rally fairing on there in certain lights. So, I mean, that could, I guess, be a problem. That's sort of been always my philosophy with sticking any sort of, navigation or anything up there, is that if you're in a situation where you really need to see the terrain that closely and that close to your tire, I mean, then you should just be up on the pegs anyways, because things are kind of hairy. But I think sitting down is still doable, especially with this in this low position, and definitely only because it's cut down. But a slightly nastier trail. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that you kind of have to look through. There's not that much intrusion into what I need to see. I mean, I can kind of just scan above it, or just above it, and see basically all I need to see. I mean, there is definitely a windshield there if I want to look at my fender. I mean, it's probably just a couple inches in front of the fender that I'm missing out on. But, of course, you can actually still see through it. It's just clear and maybe slightly distorted. And, again, after running through a bunch of brush, it's probably not going to be so clear. Woo. But, yeah, I mean, standing up like this, looking forward, even kind of in the attack position, I mean, the chin bar on my helmet basically covers it up. So I don't think it's going to be incredibly intrusive. Again, not something that I would suggest if you're going to spend your entire bike's life off-road and on single track, but if you're going to be doing a lot of road riding, well,
obviously there's reasons to do things like this. I'll have a link to Hemisphere's products down in the description. Again, huge thanks to them for sending it out to me to test and hack up and tell you exactly how I feel about it. So thanks for watching, guys. Get out here and enjoy this beautiful world God created any chance you get. If you can't do that right now, here's more videos to check out in the meantime.